Trump's threat to impose fees in the Strait of Hormuz contradicts his aides. Good afternoon. Today's headline reads, Trump's threat to impose fees in the Strait of Hormuz contradicts his aides. President Trump, during a Fox News interview, asserted that the United States could collect tolls from all cargo passing through the vital waterway. He even said the U.S. would be reimbursed at 20% of the shipping value. That statement is at odds with a line of public declarations that have come from two of Trump's top advisors, Vice President Dick Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Both have repeatedly affirmed that no country can charge tolls or fees in an international waterway. That stance is grounded in existing international law, a framework that the U.S. and its partners have for decades. Secret Secretary Rubio, who also serves as Trump's national security advisor, made that point while addressing a Gulf Cooperation Council meeting in late June. He explained that the U.S. was working with Gulf Arab oil exporting nations and that all parties had rejected any attempt to impose tolls in the Strait. Vice President Vance agreed, speaking on June 18 during a news conference where he discussed a ceasefire deal with Iran aimed at reopening the Strait. He emphasized that international waterways should be free of tolls. That principle has long underpinned the U.S. position on the Strait of Hormuz. Yet just 2 days later, on June 20, President Trump turned the tables. He announced that the U.S. could collect tolls and even clarified that such fees would stop after a 60-day period recognized in an agreement with Iran. The agreement began a ceasefire, effectively acknowledging Iran's authority over the strait, while also stating that no tolls would be allowed in the unknown hours of that initial pause. Trump's words were not entirely clear on what services he deemed payable. He suggested that after the 60 days the U.S. could recoup funds for services rendered as the guardian angel to the countries of the Middle East for both past, present, and future reimbursement of costs. Those services, presumably naval escort duties and protection of shipping lanes, would presumably be the basis for the tolls. The contradiction remains stark. When the president publicly asserted that the U.S. could be remunerated for guarding the strait, his aides, under the same administration, reiterated that international law precludes tolls in any international water ocasi on Tavis. This divergence raises questions about policy consistency and diplomatic messaging. At its core, the debate boils down to a broader dispute on Iranian control of the strait and the role of U.S. military presence. The U.S. has historically defended its role as a guardian providing security for commercial shipping, but it has also respected the principle that international waterways remain open without tolls. So, who knows when this conflict will resolve? The Biden administration could keep the U.S. in the same position, but for now, the Trump administration appears to be steeping its policy in vacillation. This variation in messaging might complicate diplomatic negotiations with Gulf states and Iran and undermine the credibility of the U.S. position as a neutral arbiter. That's all for today's briefing on this pressing issue. Thank you for listening, and as always, keep following the updates. Thanks for tuning in.